Superman's the shit. And I love him. That's it. That's all I got.
You're gonna have to explain yourself because not all the world agrees with.
No, Superman is a god among men. Simply put, the reason I love Superman. He's a god who just decided I'm gonna help these mortal men out of the goodness of my heart. He's not from America. He's not from planet Earth. He's an alien and decided, no, I can help these people. They don't deserve it. They're all pieces of shit who kill each other constantly. I can bring these, like, that's his goal was always to help the entire world, not just help one country and one place and one group. And he tied himself to this world even though he never came from it and this world never gave him anything except for obviously his parents. But that like fades over time and that's one thing, and everything else from the world just shit on him constantly. Yet he was the person who wanted, like, he gave everything just to help this world. That's why I look up to Superman. He's the shit. I mean, that's a simple thing, and that comes from every superhero. But the distinct difference, I think, is because he's not from, that's why he was something I could look up to, because he had no business taking care of what he took care of. He had no business doing any of that, and yet he still chose to.
Yeah, he's interesting because you have a lot of heroes that are normal people who are given extraordinary abilities or who gain extraordinary abilities by training. But Superman is a god who's pretending to be normal.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of like superheroes that like even like some of them are like basically like gods that are like heroes like Thor, but like not a lot of them are trying to like live like a normal life. Like Superman, like we see it time and time again in comics, like all he really wants to do is like settle down with his woman and start a family. Yep. And that I think that's very interesting because like.
Which is funny because the one thing that he really he wants to do, he never lets himself do it.
Right.
There's always something in the way because
the world needs it.
Yes.
I think that's pretty cool, and it's interesting to me how like that's something that I think kind of separates heroes from villains, is that heroes seem to still value that human element in their lives. The relationships, the connections with people.
Yeah.
Whereas like villainous people are willing to like, I guess, destroy that for the sake of their own gain.
Well, there's like a point that every villain crosses to get there.
Yeah.
So like you see villains like Captain Cold, for example. He is not a villain who crosses that point often. He has family that he loves. Captain Cold's villain is a Flash villain, and. I mean, there's tons of comics and even in the Flash TV series, like he's a villain, but he still follows that, and so that's why he's kind of the in between villain. Like he's not necessarily a bad guy. But there's a lot of criminals. Like I think there are a lot of villains that are that way as well. Like they're really tied to like one family member. How many villains have gone and done bad things because they had to save their child from cancer, and you don't find that on until 15 issues in when you already hate the guy. And they do that. They do that a lot. I mean, how many times? Like, oh well, he's just doing that because. And so I think there's a lot of villains that are that way too. But then there's also a lot like Joker's always a good example. He does have like those close ties, like not close ties, but he always has people around him. But they're always expendable.
Yeah.
Even Harley Quinn, who is just just loves him more than anything, would do anything for him in the world. He constantly uses her, and she constantly comes back, which. Women.
Yeah, that's
that's terrible. That's a whole.
That's like a whole other podcast in and of itself. It's like 100%. Bad relationships.
Like, not even just bad relationships. Like why women come back to men that use them the same to be used again, and like it's cool that they put that in the comic books and they put that into the relationship of Joker and Harley Quinn. But like you said, he had no care for personal contact.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with the exception of Joker has this very strange like
love for Batman.
Yes,
he does.
Like I was watching a review of when Spider-Man met Batman.
Okay.
And at one point, like Carnage, has Batman in his clutches, and he's like, "I'm gonna kill this guy." And the Joker shows up, and like I guess he has some kind of like toxin or virus or something
Mhm.
unleashed. And he's like, listen, like, I'll be damned if someone kills the Batman.
No one kills my boy
before I do. Like,
Yeah.
I will kill
Yep.
everyone just to make sure that like you don't kill Batman.
And is it because he wants to be the one that kills Batman, or is it because like there's something? It's not like he doesn't want to kill Batman.
It's
Like,
true. Like, he never
doesn't.
he
He never
falls
wants
through.
to kill him, and it's not just that he wants to make his life hell. Like that's how the Joker. Like this is weird, but that's how he shows. Like he cares about Harley Quinn to a degree, and the way he shows that is by using and manipulating her, and then bringing her back and using him. And that's kind of the way he uses Batman too. He uses him to get his rocks off, kind of, and then. It's kind of like Batman's kind of like his drug. Fucking with Batman is his drug, and he can't let go of that drug.
I guess in that way, Joker is the original troll.
Yes,
Like, the joy of his life is to troll Batman.
It is, but he loves Batman for it.
Yeah.
And I guess trolls, they kind of have to people who talk like they have to love the people they talk shit on to a degree because you need them.
It's that's a very interesting relationship they have. But I guess speaking of Batman, I think everyone knows that I have a love for Batman.
I mean, I definitely know.
I mean,
He fucked me in a Batman suit.
I mean, there's a lot of Batmans and several posters in this room, even though I ironically have the camera pointed at the one wall that doesn't have anything on it because it's a,
The room set up. But you do have a poster right over there, and if I'm not mistaken, Superman is in the front of it.
Well, I mean, he kind of leads to Justice League, but Batman's right next to him.
Yeah.
So, but I love Batman because he is like, he represents like the power of like humans' ability to adapt and to innovate, to overcome.
Which is the only reason we're still alive.
Right?
Like rhinos would have ate us. I mean, the rhinos of all animals I picked would have ate us, but dinos, like everything would have fucked us up.
Right?
Unless we were able to adapt and like move and just do anything.
Exactly. Because I mean, it's like this book I've been reading. Like, we humans don't have any like special power or special thing.
No.
That like you don't have excessive strength or excessive speed or anything like that.
Rams have huge horns on their head where they fucking hit each other with to fight, and they give each other concussions and then fuck each other's wives. Fuck each other's goats and then never talk to them again. Interesting thing I learned is rams don't spend time with sheep, except for one specific time when they're breeding, and they never spend time with the sheep. Hunters will not, like if you see lamb ewes, you're in the wrong spot to find a big ram. They don't fuck with women except for when they fuck them, and then they fuck off for the rest of the year.
Seriously?
That's how they work. Find it hilarious. Not that we're that way. It's terrible, but it's funny to see stuff like that in nature.
So there's something to like why Jesus says that like bad people are like goats. He's talking about like bad dads or something.
Oh, there's a lot of ways you could have taken that. There you go. I made that connection now. Apparently, that's hilarious.
Shitty dads.
Back to Batman.
No, but
shitty dads. Back to Batman.
But I love that about Batman is that like because like other heroes they have those things. And they are somewhat inhuman because, like, they have those special powers. But Batman is like, no, like, you can be a normal person. And just by the I guess what you call the humanness of you, overcome, like, great things. Like, he subdued the whole Justice League with his, like, contingency plans.
Yes.
And he's just a dude, you know?
He's a dude who understands how, like, being prepared is so important.
Right.
Because that's his big thing, is he thinks of, and this is where I kind of resonate with Batman, he thinks of every possibility he can. He thinks of every situation he can, and that's why he's prepared, that's why he's ready, that's why he has the shark repellent when they're flying on the helicopter and there's a shark, like that's why he has the right batarang for the right situation, that's why he has, like a lot of people say, well, his utility belt, he can't carry that much stuff. No, he knows what kind of fights he's probably going to end up in. He knows what kind of things he's probably going to end up in because he's analyzed the day. He knows what he's going to go out and do. He knows what he's looking for. He sees the commonalities and the patterns, and so he carries the right stuff, which is just more people think that way than people realize. I think that way to a degree. Always try to be prepared. But that's one thing I always loved about Batman. He's ready for everything. Always had the right tool for the job. Not because of magic. Not because because it's a comic book, but in reality, it's because he was always prepared.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah, definitely. And what I love about Batman is his detective mind.
Mm.
Like, I love how, the animated series was, that defined my childhood. And I loved how, so many times Batman would be in so deep, and you're like, how's he gonna get out of this? And he does, and the villain's like, how did you? And he's like, well, actually, I deduced this and this because of this and this. And so I kind of unraveled all this, and, yeah. Now I have you.
Now I have you. There's a trap underneath you,
Right.
kryptonite ring.
I love how his mind works, how he analyzes information. I also love how, for example, we can talk about Court of Owls. It's because it's been out for 5 years now. So you haven't read it.
Shut up.
It's too late to call spoilers.
Shut up. There's no such thing as spoilers on this. I don't believe in spoilers. If it's been out for 24 hours, you're out of it.
Right. But I love how in that book they're talking about before he actually discovers the court. You know, they're like there's this legend what if it's them? But he refuses to accept it until he finds sufficient evidence. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's in some cases that it works against him sometimes.
Yes, it totally does. But he has to do that. He has to draw that clear line of his thought process.
Right.
If I don't have enough proof to prove it, I can't do this because he has to spend his time that way. He has to spend his efforts that way. That's how he thinks. That's how he is as a person. But it does. I feel like it hurts his intuition a little bit.
Sometimes. But what I like about it is that we live in a world where so many things are presented to us, but before I got more into development, I was kind of on the marketing side of things.
Yeah.
And so I've had a really inside look at how everything we're presented with is tailored to present a certain message.
Yes.
And that kind of not just accepting things how they're presented, but really willing to look into things and understanding what's really going on. I can that resonates with me a lot, because even though being hesitant and I guess you say skeptical about something can sometimes backfire. In doing so, you're willing to look at details that you might have overlooked if you just accepted how things were presented to you. If you just accepted the way information was tailored to you instead of looking at all the details of how the information actually is. Because there has to be some element to how it's being presented that's true, or else they wouldn't be able to get away with selling it that way.
No, of course.
But to kind of take that and look at it a little closer and examine it, because he wasn't. It's not that he's not completely unwilling to acknowledge the possibility of things, but that he looks into details, and in those details he often finds the key to unraveling whatever that villain or organization's plan is. You know what I mean? And it's cool how by looking at things a little closer he's able to do that, and I think that can be applied in a lot of ways because I have this thing with society and culture and even language, these are the products of human beings, and human beings by nature are incapable of comprehending reality in all of its details. Our brain has to make approximations, and so the language we speak, all of these traditions and kind of the way we see things, these are all approximations of how things actually are.
Yeah, anything you always are interpreting. You're always interpreting there's this. I lost my thought process, but there's this study. Not this study, but this kind of thing that's this idea. You can just call it an idea that you never know how someone really thinks about you or what someone really. Anything that you do is affected by you being there, and so it's going to change it.
Yeah.
And so you never know honestly what's going on. You can never perceive reality 100% because everything in reality is affected by you being there and you perceiving it.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing. Everyone deals with that. That's being human.
We all have these biases that shade the way we see things.
Yeah.
But in recognizing that and examining the details more closely, we can unveil things and realize things that we might not have otherwise realized if we don't take time to acknowledge, like, I have this bias, or I understand that, like,
yeah, you can't get rid of bias.
Yeah.
I don't think you can, but acknowledging that you have it, and it's kind of a way to think around it.
Yeah.
And it's not, maybe it'd be better if we didn't have biases. Maybe we'd think more clearer that way. I think there's, of course we're going to have biases, but I think that's where intuition, like I have biases for a reason. Intuitively, when I follow things, a lot of times they work out, which is different than Batman. He doesn't he doesn't, I don't.
I guess it depends on which Batman you're talking about.
I mean, it does.
Because he's been written a little differently. I mean, he stays...
What you're talking about is his detective side. When he gets really detective, he gets very analytical. They don't depend on, like... They don't... I think he questions, like, his nature. Like, he questions what, like, he wants to believe. He is in constant self-doubt, which is good. It's taxing, which you see in Batman.
Yeah.
In the comic books. It's a taxing way to look at everything. It's just, your mind has to be so active and going all the time. And I think, like, you see, like, when he has emotional problems and when he gets messed up and when things go wrong, it's often a problem of him getting too wrapped up into something and not seeing something else.
Yeah.
We saw that in Hush, I feel like, a lot. Him getting wrapped up in the wrong things because he's refusing to accept certain things. He's only looking at facts, and he's refusing to accept things that, that were little hints early on. And Hush kind of talks about that as not as weakness, but if you know Batman really well, it's not hard to beat him, I feel like.
Yeah. I can agree. And that honestly, that really resonates with me, like, the way he thinks. Because, like, I feel like, to some degree, I'm that way.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the kind of person, my mind is always going.
100%.
And I'm always asking questions of myself.
Yes.
Like, I told someone, we both know, Mike, the other day, I was like, listen, man, like, my boldest claims are just my latest theories. Like, I'll say things very, like, boldly and confidently.
100%, but it's just what I'm thinking right now.
Yeah, and that
may change.
Yeah, but
quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. And but that's in my head. I'm like, well, like, I'm 85% sure about this. And in my head, I acknowledge that, like, it could be the other way,
And I love being that kind of way. I mean, maybe it's confusing, but I like being 85% sure and talking like I'm 100% sure, which sounds terrible.
I don't think it is, because you need to be able to, like, test your theories.
Yeah, and that's how
the thing.
That's how I test truth. I bring it at to you. Like, I'm gonna bring it at to you hard, because if you can't do that, you're not gonna be able to. If you can't handle me coming out hard and come back out hard, we're not gonna learn.
Exactly.
We're not gonna grow. There's got to be, like, ideas have to crash, which is weird. I guess we can, slowly start, but there has to be disagreement so things can progress.
Yeah, I honestly think that's the problem with, like, the world today, is that, like,
we all know that. We all agree to that. Well, not all of us. But
the fact that you can't just, like, boldly proclaim an idea without offending someone, like, we need to live in a world.
Don't get me started on offense.
Right. And this is something that I run into a lot, where I'll say things and people get offended. And I'm like, listen, like, so a lot of times, like, the best way to, like, try to sort out, like, how good a theory is to be able to present it boldly.
Yeah.
And then to, like, see how that theory interacts with the world.
Yeah.
See like how people respond to it, to see, like, to put it to the test in a number of ways. And a lot of times, like, bringing people together and having some kind of consensus is a great way to begin to, like,
100%.
flush out, like
that's how you define truth, like, in a lot of ways. You get people together and you throw it at them and you talk to them. That's a dumbed down version of what scientists do. They make claims through research, and then they come and bring it to each other and talk about it and show off the facts, and that's how advancements are born.
Yeah.
I think being offended, just because I have to. Being offended is my favorite quote that has changed my life more than anything. I heard in, we'll say in a religious institution, we'll say it that way, the MTC, you know what that means. I heard someone say, only a fool gets offended when no offense is met.
And I learned that, I was 19 when I heard that. And it resonated with me so powerfully. And I'm glad it did, because that comes in really handy now, and for the rest of my life it will be.
Yeah.
Because so many people get offended over the little shit. So many get offended. I made, and I have a tendency to make jokes too soon, to say things too soon, to push boundaries. Why? Because we need people like that. Like, we need people who are going to be assholes a little bit. And made a joke about a shooting. But not a joke about a shooting. So what happened was, I was with my friend and his sister, and we were all talking about current events, and we had earlier talked about not the San Bernardino, sorry, the Florida shooting, the Orlando shooting.
Yeah.
And they're like, how could they do that? And I was like, some people really hate gay people. Like, it's terrible, but like that's what it came down to, is they hated gay people and wanted to kill them. Like, that's as simple as it gets, and it's a shame, but that's why it happened. And so we were talking about that, and then we moved on to another conversation, and we were talking about something called PuppyCon. And I was like, are you kidding me? There's a PuppyCon now. Because there's video, VidCon and whatever con and Suck My Garf Con. And, there's Shocker Con. Shocker Con.
Not to be confused with Shaka Khan.
No, exactly. But there's PuppyCon, and I stopped her, and I was like, you know what I just realized? I was like, I can now be sympathetic with the shooter. I could walk into that building and kill every motherfucker in there. I understand them now. I get it. That is the point that drives me too far. That is when I become a radical person. When people get together to talk about their motherfucking puppies all the time. People with Instagrams for goddamn dogs. Like, it was a joke. Obviously, I don't feel that way. I'm not going to go kill people with puppies. Made a joke. She was horrified. Like, she was horrified. There was no laughter. There was no nothing, which is fine. Sometimes jokes fail. You don't laugh if it wasn't funny. That's fine. But she didn't laugh because she was sickened at the idea that I would make a joke too. And I was like, humor is what we use to get over things.
Right.
Making jokes about terrible things that just happened. Yes, I'm going to talk about towers falling down and crushing little people and people falling out after 9/11. Yes, I'm going to do that. Why? Because when we process things with humor, we see it from a different aspect. We see it from a different light. We take it less seriously, which is bad, but there's a time when that's useful, because if you hold on to everything seriously all the time and never let things just go and never joke about it, it builds too much. You can't carry that much shit. Because the more you do that, the more you have to carry. And if you carry too much, you get tired and life is shitty. And that's why a lot of people have shitty lives, because they're carrying on a whole lot of bullshit, because they want to get offended every day. They want to get upset every day. And you're holding on to that, and it drags you down. I don't want people not to be offended so I can say what I want. I want people not to be offended so they don't have to deal with that. Because that's what makes you a shitty person. When you deal with all that bullshit all the time, when you constantly feel offended. I felt offended before. That's all I think about when I'm offended. When a girl offends me, doesn't want to talk to me, doesn't want to call me back. When a guy's an asshole and calls me fat, when I was in middle school, I think about that all day. It ruins my day. You gotta let it go.
Right.
Can't get offended. Even when people are trying to offend you, the saying I said is, only a fool gets offended when offense is meant. But even, choose when to get offended. Choose really hard when to get offended. Make it a big decision if you're going to take offense over something, because it might not be worth your effort. It might not be worth the time.
My thing with being offended is that, like, if something offends you, then it's fine to, like, pull yourself away from that if you find it completely necessary. What I have a problem with people is that, like, people get offended, especially when you don't intend it, and they make it like their life's mission to, like, punish you.
Oh my!
And, like,
so no, yeah,
that drives me nuts. Like,
how does that make, like, so I offended you by something I said, and you're going to directly impact my livelihood, my job in some cases, my family life, my friendships, personal, because I said something you didn't like?
Yeah, and especially...
And you think you're a good person for doing it? Fuck you.
Yeah, and the funny thing is that, like, a lot of times this happens when I seriously had a situation where I said some things jokingly, and I admit I was being a bit of a dick.
What'd you say?
It's irrelevant. The point is for months afterwards, this person, like, came after me, and I was just like, holy shit! Like, I had a bad day. I was trying to deal with it by being funny, and maybe I was being a little bit dick in my humor, but like seriously, like going out of their way to like fuck with me, and I was just like, what? Why? Like
I'll go out of my way to fuck with you. You hit my friend. You stab my friend. Like you do something. Not because you offend me.
Right.
I'm not gonna like,
It's like-
come on. I'm not
it's
gonna
like-
ruin your life because.
it's like it's not like I broke into your house and killed your mother.
Exactly. Like, get off my hands.
I just like made like a joke about like people's lifestyle choices, and yeah. It came out.
What was the lifestyle choice?
It's irrelevant.
Come on.
It's that stupid.
I have to hear it though.
that
People need
stupid.
to hear this. You can't not say it.
No needs here. And you know what? Here's why. Because I don't want to give any glory to that person.
Who's gonna say their name? You don't gonna say their name. You don't say shit.
But it's happened,
All right.
it's happened more than once.
Stop.
It hasn't.
Hold on.
It hasn't always been like.
Male or female? Let me guess. Female. Of course. Of course. And I'm not gonna say why I'm saying of course because you're gonna call me sexist, but of course.
There have been some cases where there's been males.
Yes, there are guys like that. I mean, anyone.
But-
That's the thing. Anyone can be like that, but because I'm a guy, it's more probable to be a girl because passion. That only happens when someone feels passionately about someone, or passionately about something. Like no one's gonna go out of the way to affect and hurt someone unless like they want to affect or hurt someone because like they have. I don't know. Like you're not gonna. Weird, but you don't for like to a degree. You don't fuck with people you don't care about. Like you don't care what their opinion is or whatever. Like you're not just gonna. Most smart people don't waste their time.
Right.
And so like when they like get offended, like I've seen girls use like getting offended at something I did as a way to date me, as a way to talk to me and flirt with me. Like that's how they would pull me back in when I had shown them disinterest, and when I was done, they would be like, "Oh, that was really rude what you did last time. Like at this day, like I was offended by that." And they think that like that's what they use to pull me back in to talk to them so they get another chance. Mind-boggling, right? Why do girls do that? But it happened 1,000 times to me. Girls hit me up, or girl will text me I haven't talked to. I'm upset we haven't talked in a long time. Why would I talk to you after you say that?
Right.
Why would I respond to that? You're a text message on my phone. Understand that. You're not a person standing in front of me. Why would
I guess I never thought of it that way because like there are those girls that like try to come back into your life, but like they lead with an accusation.
Yeah, what's
They're
that
just
about?
like-
Leading with an accusation. Like, I've done that before. Don't get me wrong, I've done that before. Like, it works when it's cute, when you're both into each other. Like, there's times when that works. I've used it to success and failure. But then I stopped.
Right. Because for me, I'm a laid back dude. I
can vouch, she is.
I just want to enjoy my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if more people would just enjoy their lives, the world would be a better place. If we could just all support each other and enjoying ourselves. You know, work hard, play hard is kind of my thing. But so when someone like leads a text conversation, they just like come at me with these accusations. I'm just like, I don't want to deal with that. I'm trying to have a good time over here, and you're like
Bring me down.
throwing poop at me. Like I'm like nope, I don't want to deal with it. Gone. Like nope, I don't need this.
Well, and like, I learned that, like, I fell into a trap of, like, not throwing poop, but, you know, sometimes people will, like, have problems just so people will talk to them, right? I found myself falling into that, like, with this last girl that I was dating, because I wanted to talk to her so bad. And it was easy to talk to her when I had a problem, because then there was that care, she could put that. And so I found myself, and I wouldn't create problems. But when I had a problem, I was excited because then I could tell her about it and it would be something we get to. And that's a dark path.
It is.
And I see how people like fall into it because I saw how people fall into like lying and making things up and using just random little bullshit like that to get people.
I think that starts when they're young. Like I'll admit, like
Yeah.
I remember to have a family member like that who like sometimes will like put on the show to get attention.
Yes.
But I mean like I feel like at some point early in their life, like they were able to get attention that way, and
Yeah.
it may not even be like a conscious decision
Well,
they make,
I can't.
but just something that they do.
I can't tell you how many times that, like, when I was young and I wasn't very comfortable with girls, but I was, still a really nice guy, a good-looking guy. I'm a big, tall guy, so that, that always helps when girls like tall guys. You can be a 4 and be 6 foot something. You're fine. It's true. It doesn't matter how attractive you are. If you're a guy, just be successful and work hard. You can find something you want. I forgot I started thinking with my dick and lost my train of thought. Imagine that.
That happens. You know, when you get your dick involved, it's easy to lose your head.
It is real. Chemicals happen.
Right.
I need a T-shirt that says that. Chemicals happen. I'm a huge but like just realize that your body's a chemical factory. And when you do things, it affects you chemically. So when you drink, well, the alcohol, helps you feel better. You create more dopamine. If you drink too much, guess what? Or do any one thing that makes you happy too much, guess what? Your body's going to slow down on the dopamine production because you're adding extra in, because you're adding external substances in that help you create more. So your body uses that as a crutch and starts creating less. Why are you sad when you stop drinking? You don't have money to drink? That might be a reason why. But so that's why I very much remember your body's a chemical factory. Everything you do affects it. And like your interactions with people, that's why you feel sad after you talk about something sad, because it affects you chemically, which affects you emotionally, which affects you mentally, which affects you spiritually, I believe. And everything flows, everything affects everything. And having an idea of that, I guess this is kind of an offshoot of where my head was at, because I lost it. But no, understanding that everything affects everything, and that there can be multiple reasons for one thing. There can be multiple reasons for reasons people are the same way. Why girls, or guys want to create problems in their life to get attention. There's lots of reasons why they did it. And a lot of it comes from when you were a kid. A lot of it comes with, when I fell a lot as a kid, my daddy picked me up and held me and took care of the wound. So when he stopped, I started falling down more, or when he had a bad, when he didn't want to talk to me, and that's where it comes from. Like when dad comes home and doesn't want to talk to his little girl because he had it bad, or he's fighting with his mom and he loses, he's constantly thinking about that, and he's not playing with his daughter anymore, and so she goes and falls and hurts herself because she knows that worked last time and it didn't work that time. And that's where I believe a lot of those mindsets come from.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as simple as that. What the way nurture is, there's nature and nurture. People are born with some things, and that's the way some things are. Nature is so much of it, though. What you grow up in, where you grow up, who you interact with, who your fucking mom and dad were. If you don't think that affects you, you're wrong.
Right.
If you're stuck in the mindset of I'm my own person, then no. They affect you so much. That will be the biggest fight, I think, in your life. I haven't lived a long time, but a lot of the other people I talk about, people are talking about their parents until they're dead for a reason.
Right.
And
this leads back to our original discussion, actually. I enjoy superheroes that are well written because you see all those elements.
Yes.
You see, how, the nurture side, them trying to deal with, how they were raised and the situation they're in. In Batman and Superman, you have, both these, orphaned, people who are trying to make sense of. Alright, so anyway, you have both these orphans, Batman and Superman,
yes,
who both face these situations where their life was offended, where they had parents, a normal family, and luckily Superman was able to find
Superman found, he did. Batman didn't. He had Alfred. Which is very that is a defining part of why he was who he was and why he was raised who he is. And there's a lot of, Batman's so good because he was raised by a great man, Alfred. But there's also a lot of, he's a narcissistic asshole because he was raised by one person and he was only a kid in a goddamn huge house. So yeah, he's a little narcissistic and he thinks everything's he is.
Yeah.
And that shows in the comic book.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they did that on purpose, but I love that it's in there.
Exactly. And I weep that people don't appreciate what superheroes can teach us about ourselves. A lot of things, dealing with a lot of understanding how my upbringing affects the way I view the world, and just the chemicals involved. Because it's not just a strictly I guess social thing. Your brain develops according to the way you're brought up.
Yes. And physically develops in physical ways. you create synapses that to certain places in your brain. You get those weird grooves that we all have in our brains. Those are memories. Those are pathways. Those are those happen over time. They're not born that way.
Right.
And the physical representation of what happens when we learn and remember and know things and feel things.
Yeah.
It's crazy. What just happened?
No, it just jostled a little bit. I was trying to.
There's an earthquake.
It's an earthquake. Ah! No, anyway, no, definitely, and I love that they explore that in these heroes, and I think that like you also see that becomes a point of weakness,
Mm-hmm.
like with both of them, like
Mm-hmm.
that longing for home, and that not quite understanding how they relate to the world that they're in because of their displaced situation.
Which is something that everyone deals with. No one understands, like, how do I put myself into this mess that we all live in?
Yeah.
And we don't exactly know how to do it because, like we talked about earlier, we all live in our own realities.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we all perceive things differently because we're there, because someone else is there, we all miss things because we see one thing, it's just, you can't, as much as we like to notice it all, and Batman, for example, wants to notice it all, and we both want to notice everything around, you can't, to a degree. Like, you have to, that's something that I always notice about Batman, is he wouldn't let that go. He could never let that go. He could never stop. And that's a commonality when you see, like, when, like, superheroes are in movies, where, like, soldiers, they come back into combat, or they come back in to save someone, or come back in to do something. There's the commonality of they never let it go. They were always stayed aware, and they always stayed on top of it. And that, I think, that brings up another topic of letting things, I guess, letting things go. Like, you have to, you see how many times does Batman quit? How many times has he quit or left or stopped or went on break or done his thing because he had an emotional breakdown or something happened? But he never let it go 100%, so he always comes back. Even if he goes and has a family, something always draws him back, and that's how it is. Unless you let go of something completely, unless you stop, unless you make an active effort to stop thinking about something, stop doing something, you always fall back into it. We're glad that Batman always falls back into being a superhero and being a badass because the comics are great.
Right.
But every time he comes back, I feel bad. Like, and this is weird because he's not a real person, but the reason we talk about superheroes is because the principles that we find are very real. And you can find principles in anything, that's why I find it foolish when people, put down people who are religious, because anything you learn in your life, I can learn in my life in a different way. I learn through doing things. I learn, I go to church. I don't just learn about church when I go to church. The idea of that is ridiculous. When you work on a car, if you're a mechanic, you don't just learn mechanic principles when you work on that car. You learn principles that ring true in anything. When you study any one thing a lot, you learn principles that ring true in anything.
Exactly.
Anyone that's gone out and experienced life understands that. Anyone that's gone out and hiked a mountain understands it. Anyone that's gone out and played a baseball game, done anything, understands that to a little degree. That I lost my train of thought.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, everything. Anyone who believes in objective truth must recognize that
all things can teach truth.
All truths seem to converge
Yes.
towards that, like, wholeness of objective truth, and anything that has something good to it that like resonates with you can help you get closer to that.
Yeah.
And it never ceases to amuse me how like people will be, oh, comics and video games, what a waste of time. And I'm like, these are some life lessons I pulled out of like those things, like, but you have to allow it to teach you, and I think that's a problem. I think sometimes
how do you allow it to teach you? How do you do that? How do you open yourself up like that?
And I guess that's the thing. Like, I guess in the world sometimes we say like, this you gain stuff from doing this, and you gain truth and knowledge from doing this. And,
beware of one-word answers, one-word truths. Oh, all you have to do is this. All you have to do is this.
Right. And
no.
It's
never.
No. I think that if something resonates with you, if something speaks to you, like, maybe that thing in particular, there's some truth to that. That like,
yes.
maybe you in particular, like, there's something there for you. that jives with like kind of what you're looking for, if you're open to it. The problem that I have with like a lot of culture and society is that sometimes we try to like we put labels on things, and we say this is the natural order of how people live and how people should think.
This is how people
And
think. This is how people do things. This is what we do.
Yeah, and this is what is good and what's not. And it's not. The problem isn't saying that there is good and evil, but the problem is saying that like the way we see things is the way it is. And it's hilarious because you can drive 20 minutes and find people who think things are completely different from that. It's interesting how humans will begin to like assume that like what they have like marinated in for most of their lives is a natural order, but fail to see how new a lot of our ideas are that we subscribe to in this day and age.
Well, I like to go back to like ancient times a lot because I think it explains a lot of why we think the way we think and how our brains are formed, and you know, I like to go back to hunter and gatherer, and you know that's you know, we do things this way because we used to do things this way, and that's something I think we should always remember. I think this is going to sound terrible. I love society the way it is today. It's beautiful. You know, there's a lot of crazy things that people do, but we also get to do a lot of fun things. So I live like a goddamn king, and I complain about being poor, and I complain I don't have enough money. But god damn it, there is not a king that ever reigned over, you know, Britain or well, of course now, but ever reigned over, you know, pick a country, Germany, wherever there were kings. There was never a warlord that ate as good as I did. There was never a warlord, a king, any sort of top figurehead back in the day that drove a car like I did. Like, my life's the shit compared to anything that's ever happened. And everyone needs to remember that every single day. And yeah, it's like, oh, pray for your daily bread. Pray. No, that's not it. It's be grateful for what you have, because it's not. It makes you, being grateful makes you feel fucking good.
It does.
And being grateful for the way things are, but with all the change in society and with humans used to, I think, I mean, back to, I guess, kind of old humans, but really kind of animals. The way animals work is they're in the moment. And there's a beauty to that. There's a beauty to living in the moment. You know, running through a forest, chasing an animal with a spear. That sounds like fun, right?
Yeah.
That's very in the moment. In you know, ancient people and even people until really recently, they had to live in the moment all the time. They were constantly looking for food, constantly looking for this. I constantly need to do this. I constantly need to do this. There wasn't drama, okay? Like, there wasn't drama back then. Drama's new. Understand that drama is new, because back then no one had time for that bullshit. Ain't nobody got time for that. That worked 100 years ago, 200 years ago. God damn, I wish I could be an Indian. You know, I would. It sounds dope. Like, humans used to just chase deer for days until the deer got tired, and then we killed it. Like, so focused, and that's what we did. And so now we have a society where we aren't that way. We don't have to be, this is the way it is, 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 because we don't have to worry about our food. We don't have to worry about where I'm staying. You know, some people do, but really, compared to, you know, most people don't have to worry about being survived. You know, I have the internet, we have phones, I have those things. I don't have to worry if I'm going to die tomorrow. I don't have to worry if an animal, I mean, probably is going to come eat me tomorrow. You know, it's possible, but it's just not going to happen. I have other things that I can focus time on, and so this idea of this is the way it is, this is the way it is, this is the way it is. We have so much time, we have so much contact with other people. Open yourself up. See how as many things are as possible. What has changed more than anything is when I've spent time in places I haven't lived before. When I go and live in an area where I've never lived before. When I go and, you know, I lived in Mexico for 2 years, lived in various places in Mexico across, you know, the northern part of Mexico. Nothing taught me more in my life than that. I saw how different people believe different things in different areas, and yet there's still so much truth.
Right.
Having a wide view of how a lot of things are, it's just a good idea. So get out of this mindset of this is the way it is, this is the way it is, this is the way my phone is. Oh, Katie called me a bitch because I talked to her boyfriend, and like, no.
Right.
Like, none of that matters. That's not why we have phones. That's not why we can learn all these new things. Like, to use it for something as simple as that is a shame. Don't spend time focusing on shit like that. Spend time focusing on what you can learn.
Exactly. I love like questioning like again like things are presented to you a certain way as you grow up. And to recognize that you don't have to like follow all those tropes and
Yeah.
trends and like labels that people put on you. Like there's more to you than that, and there's more to this human experience than that. And I love the fact that like I'm not bound by those things. You know, like I was on a date with a girl the other day, and she was like, "So what kid were you in high school?" You know, and I was like, the confused one.
Yeah.
Because, you know...
That is exactly how you could have explained me in high school.
You know?
That's the best word for it.
Because you know, here I am, like it's, in my case in particular, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm like this scrawny, kind of nerdy kid earlier on, and then puberty hits, and all of a sudden, like, I can put on muscle really easily, and, like, you know, like, you start to get attention from girls, and, like, people are like... You know, the bullies flee away because, like, you're athletic all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And... like people like you, and you're not used to all of that, and you have people who see you in a way that you never saw yourself, and trying to like make sense of like this new being you're living in, with like the little kid you are inside, who's still very like insecure and not sure of himself, and like sometimes would rather like I'll admit like we had a terrible football team in high school. Like my favorite part of Friday nights was going home and I get like this Xbox magazine demo disc. And I would just go home and play the shit out of the demos that I have in this disc. That was I didn't care about the football game.
Oh,
like, I played football because my friends played football.
Yeah.
But like I kind of hated it secretly. And the best part of Friday night was going home and playing video games. Like I'm like, oh, like on this issue of Xbox magazine, this is gonna be the demo. Like, oh man, like that Spartan Total Warrior game, man, like it's so cool looking. I can't wait to go home and play it. You know, so I'm sitting on the bus going home from the game, and I'm just like stoked to like everybody's depressed because we lost because that was pretty cool.
And you're like, shut up! Like we're gonna play demos. I'm gonna eat some Cheetos in my bed,
right?
No, it's that's something I've always actually really liked about you. You never lost. Like you're not scared to be who you are. And that's that's a simple thing that everyone hears, but it's really you. The most interesting part of you is who you are. Like the most interesting, like it's the weird shit about you. There's so many people who care about it, and there's a lot of people that don't. And guess what? We have the internet, so you can find a lot of people who care about it. But there's just like, it's okay to be you, and if you're not you, I'm not interested in you.
Right.
And that's why that's a good way to explain me in high school too. I like I said, I was a big guy. I was chubby when I was a little younger, and I've always gone through stages of being chubby and not chubby, and and being in shape and not being in perfect shape, and just being skinny, and just a lot of different things. But I had a different experience going to high school because I moved around tons and tons and tons as a kid, and because I moved around a lot, I learned how to make friends with people really fast. So I also became popular very quickly, and because I got a restart button all the time, like I wasn't cooler than this person at school. So next time I move, I know how to I know what I did wrong. I know and I've always naturally seen things away. But then when I live in Utah, and I moved to Utah when I was 12. And 12, 13, and so all of my middle school I had done, most of my middle school I had done out of state, and so coming into Utah's an interesting place to live.
You can say that again.
Yeah, any place you get into is interesting, but Utah, because of the Mormon influence, which no problem with it. I mean, it's fantastic. But makes people act different, just like any culture is different.
Yeah.
I didn't get along with it. The way that people were seen, the way you rose through the ranks at my high school, the way you became I didn't want anything to do with it.
Right.
And I couldn't be friends with people who were from Utah. It's really weird. There's such a drastic difference. So all of my friends were people who were not from Utah. There were people who were from California, people who were from mostly California, honestly. Buddy from New Jersey. Buddy from Colorado, but mostly California. And that was all my friends. So I cut a big group of people out when I first moved here. And I thought I very quickly, it's not that I thought I was better than them, but I realized I was different. And instead of using like that difference to show off and be like, I didn't trust that a lot of the people would be like, oh yeah, because I thought you had to be the same to do things. And so I went off and I wasn't, I started playing football when I moved here and stopped my junior year, didn't get along with the team. I got in fights with a lot of the guys on the teams, which is a blast. I was a dumbass then, too prideful. I'm still working on that, but much more prideful back then. But I didn't have, it was the first time when I moved here that I didn't have tons of friends right off the bat. And I wasn't the cool kid right off the bat. I wasn't the leader. I had always led groups of kids and people, and I just couldn't do it when I came here. And so I became cold and bitter for a while, and I was like, well, fuck these people. And I kept that attitude for a while. And it didn't take until I was a little younger. And that attitude made it almost impossible to date girls and to get girls. And, I was, like I said, I was a good looking kid. I was a tall kid. I was a big kid. I played football. Physically I was appealing. But I thought I was better than them. And I was just like, fuck you guys. And yeah, I was to a degree. Like I did understand more. And I did know more because I'd lived in a bunch of places, but I didn't feel like they deserved me. But it really, it made me way too judgmental. And it made it impossible to date because a lot, I only hung out with my friends because they didn't, all the girls around, like I didn't have all my friends were from out of state, and the way you got girls in Utah is very different than the way you get girls out of state. And I didn't have, it's very, very, that's the biggest difference in Utah. The way you date and the way you get girls is drastically different than anywhere else. And so I went from being like a popular cool kid to being like a quiet, passionate. Like I'm very passionate. So people would know that they would say I look upset or whatever, but I was in class, I would be passionate about certain things every once in a while. And people would see that side of me come out, but then I was quiet all the rest of the time. It took me a while to work up just because I couldn't find my place. But what really, I went and served, I was gone for 2 years in Mexico serving a mission. And that's when I realized, I went to a new place, became very social, and realized that my judgmental side was ruining my life. My judgmental side of seeing people, if you don't do these things my way, I'm not going to be your friend, was going to ruin my life. And I learned that because being out in those cultures, I loved every bit of it. Everyone was so different. And I love people being different. And I decided that I needed to love people in Utah. And even if they were different and are very annoying, it still bothers me sometimes when I don't, there's a lot of people I don't spend time with in Utah. I had to get out of that mindset and get into a less judgmental, more inclusive mindset. And I was also matured even a lot more. My mission was much more attractive when I got back. Not much more, but I was even more attractive when I got back. And so the girl problem was fairly solved, and it was very weird being like, girls are just coming at me now. I don't have to work for this. That was a weird thing for a while that I dealt with.
That's always been like I'm not sure exactly where that happened for me, but being it's weird because outwardly I can be very social and outgoing.
Yes, you can.
But inwardly I do retain a degree of shyness.
Yep.
And when I'm put into that situation, there are a bunch of girls throwing themselves. It's I kind of balk, and I'm not sure how to deal with it. Even to this day, I'll be I'll be the climbing gym, and when there's a bunch of girls all kind of vying for your attention. I'm kind of just jumping the wall.
You just instead you just focus on that.
Yeah.
And you go, and then they go off with the beta males because the alpha's in there doing work. He's alpha when he's at the gym. I'm sorry, he's alpha when he's there. That's it. Doesn't matter who walks in. President Obama could walk in. Fuck off, Obama. I'm alpha. Doesn't matter who you are. This is territory. You gotta come beat him.
It's just, I don't know, and maybe part of it is my nerdiness because
No, of course. I mean, the nerdiness quality you have, it comes from the shy quality that you have. You like to a degree, be alone, hang out with your comics, learn something by yourself, live in a world by yourself, and then go back into reality. That's kind of your thing to do.
Yeah.
And so, you're a little more. You learned it was important to be. You're a shy person naturally, but you learned it was important to be outgoing.
Yeah.
That's how I see. I see myself that way a lot. And I think everyone needs it. Like everyone's a little shy of certain circumstances.
Definitely.
I had to learn to be outgoing and talk to people, or else I would have lived a shitty life. I would have been a depressed, sad kid at school all the time, all growing up with no friends, sitting alone at a table. I didn't want to be that kid. Fuck that shit.
Right?
No, I was also like, I played Pokemon too long. I did all that shit too long, you know? I mean, I didn't do Yu-Gi-Oh! And that stuff, but I played Pokemon until I was way too old. You know, I watched Power Rangers until I was too old, you know? I read comic books to this day, love comic books.
Love comic books.
I probably won't ever stop reading comic books. One, because the art is incredible.
Right.
And I love looking at things that people have done and made and created. When you think about like, all of those were drawn and colored, you know, and the art that goes into it it's a skill.
Right. And I love getting into the mind of like the people, not the artists, the writers, and like seeing. There's a lot of how they see the world that they infuse into the comic,
Into their art, into their
and it's so interesting to see it through the lens of that writer and through the lens of that character, and to consider like to put yourself in those shoes and be like, man, like I never thought about life this way.
Yeah, that's why I love talking to people this way and talking to people like that, because anyone who's passionate about anything can teach me something by talking about what they love.
Right?
Learned that a long time ago. Luckily, I was able to say that clearly, because a lot of times you know something, but you don't have a clear way of saying it. But anyone that's passionate about anything, I can learn something from them when they tell me about it.
Yeah.
I can learn what drove them to do that. I can learn, maybe it's about that. Maybe it's something I'm interested in. But even if it's not something I'm interested in, I can talk to anyone about anything for hours if they're passionate about it.
Yeah.
Because it's beautiful to watch someone talk about what they love.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that it's important to be able to like take time to listen to what people are passionate about. Because some people like you mentioned, like some people, if they're not passionate about the same thing, they don't want to hear about it.
It's a mistake.
And
Get out of that.
It's a mistake. Like there's people who talk to me about things they're passionate about that like I would never get into, but I can appreciate like what they've learned and what they can teach me from their experiences. Like I remember sitting down, like I learned so much from this one guy who, like, he's in a band and he's very very successful at it, and he's done theme songs for like shows and stuff, and like I have no intention of starting a band.
No.
And like touring or like doing theme songs, but like so many precious life lessons, And one of the things I really love is just like how he learned to just like appreciate people for who they are.
And that's what you get that from anyone who loves to talk about passionate people. Anyone who loves to talk to passionate people, they tend to be really caring, like honest, good people. And a lot of us, and I like to say this because I like to think I'm that way, but it's in reality I'm working to be that way. I'm working to be more like that constantly because I'm not that way all the time. It's a constant effort I have to do. But I really believe that you shouldn't write anyone off. That you shouldn't ever think this guy in this situation can never teach me anything. I don't need to listen to him. And I'm sure as you get older, that gets harder and harder to do because you know more and more, and you can very easily say, well, that kid knows nothing because I saw him do this, and this, and that's why I can write him off. And in situations that's.
And I mean, but you don't necessarily have to
There's so much, and if you can't learn from them, maybe you're teaching them. And there's something beautiful in doing that too. I don't want to act like I've changed lots of people's lives, but I've helped people in times, help people, younger guys. There's a good couple of years where I was just helping guys do what they wanted to do. I was in a situation where people who were, wanted to make a similar decision to me and go on missions, and I was able to help people work towards that and do that. And it was a beautiful thing that I could do because I was in a situation where I knew a little bit more about someone else. And I could help give them advice to, or just talk to them and be their friend and just have honest conversation like this. And you fall into great conversations and talking. Don't write anyone off because I ended up learning from those guys and they went and did awesome things. And I feel fantastic because I was, a little part of what helped them go do something else. And I'm a little part of their life. And, I have little parts in everyone's life and everyone's got a little part in mine. And it's all, we're all dealing with the same bullshit. You can learn from anyone. Just talk to people.
And I think that's a sign of, like, a genuine interaction when you both profit from it.
Yes.
When you're both edified by that interaction. Like, you know, like I work with kids, you know, in some of my free time, and like, man, they teach you so much.
You coach, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's such incredible things you can learn from children, you know?
It's funny.
And a lot of, I'll go and talk to other people about things my kids tell me, and they'll be like, they don't know about that, they're a kid. And I'm like,
Well,
you need to give them more credit. Like, like for example, like my kids can do some things with technology that I didn't do till I was an adult. And people will be like, no, they can't do that, they're kids. And I'm like, well, I mean, look at this generation and what they've grown up with access to. Like, I didn't have this kind of stuff on technology.
I haven't
when was a
adapted
kid.
like as I didn't start adapting as young as they did, so they have an advantage in that
They have an
realm.
advantage.
That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really it.
Like,
but that's it.
Yeah, and you can't write them off just because they're kids. Like,
No. How often as a child did you feel like I hate it when people write it off? I hate it when people write me off. I hate it when people write me
Right.
off. How fucking dare you forget that when you grow up?
Right.
Don't you forget that when you grow up?
Seriously.
Like anything like that makes you a worse person because then you're a hypocrite. Then all you are a mother. And guess what? When you're a hypocrite, you have nothing worthwhile to say to me or anyone.
Right.
I can't. That writes you off
And I think
immediately.
that sentiment is like part of why I like to listen to my kids, because I remember being a kid and people were just like, no, you don't know what you're talking about because you're a kid. I hated that. So when I get my kids talking about stuff, I listen.
Yeah.
And I try to like get on their level and be like, huh. Because I mean, sometimes my kids will talk about stuff that I'm like, tell me about that. Like, I don't know if I know much about that. Like, tell me about that, why you love it, you know?
And I mean, having conversations with kids like that is great because then they learn that they love having passionate, awesome conversations.
Yeah.
And there's nothing better for you.
Yeah.
That you can getting together with like-minded people who they don't have to believe anything the same as you, but they're passionate about something. They think things through. They don't jump to conclusions. Like, you find a good person who just is open to conversation and will talk with you. Fucking talk to them for as long as you can. Talk to her for as long as you can. You're gonna learn something.
Yeah, certainly. I definitely agree with that. And like, it's just such a pleasure to like learn, like from kids in particular, and to see how much it just gives me so much hope. Like I think it's weird. Like, I almost want to say like before I started working with kids, like
You had zero hope for the generation.
it's not that I'm not zero for this generation, but like I didn't have as positive a view of like the world in general. But when I see like these young minds, like how they're passionate about things, how they're learning things, how they're exploring and growing, and seeing how intelligent like people so young can really be, I'm like there's some good stuff that's gonna happen, you know?
I mean, there are some moments of brilliance in between I want to fuck and my dick's hard, I want to fuck. Like, that's all that happened when I was a kid, but there was moments of brilliance in between them.
Oh, certainly, you know? And like, and it's also good to realize that at the end of the day, we're all really children, you know?
Yeah, like don't take yourself too serious.
Right?
It doesn't matter how smart you are, it doesn't matter what you've done. Really don't take yourself
Yeah.
too serious.
And I think it's a sentiment a roommate shared with me once that I really appreciate that point of view, where he's like, you know, like, even if you're the smartest fourth grader in the class, you're still a fourth grader, you know?
You're the smartest ape on a rock. That's it.
Right?
If you're the strongest guy in the world, you're the strongest ape on a rock. Shut the fuck up. 2 apes could take you out.
Right?
You're not that special.
Exactly.
Like,
And like, yeah, it's just it's good, you know.
Something I worked with. I was a youth counselor for a few years, not too long ago. Loved that job. I wish I was still doing it in a lot of ways. But it started off with like conduct disorder kids. Kids were just, some gangs, nothing too crazy. They didn't get too gangbanger, and most of the gang kids were just kids that other gang members told them they were part of the gang, but they weren't part of the gang yet. They hadn't been in it. Like, it was that kind of stuff. And that happens a lot. But yeah, kids trying to be in gangs, kids trying to be hard. That's my favorite. And some kids really were. Some kids were hard and dangerous, but it was a treatment center, so kids were coming there to get treatment for that, for autism, for other things. I loved doing it. At first, I saw it as I kind of went through my process as, I feel so good about doing this good thing. I was that way for a little bit, but really, I love just spending time with the kids because